deception, and a lot of people don't know the UN logo is a flat Earth map. So just do some research. The deception runs deep.
The Earth is not flat.
We don't. It's flat.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's a leading astronomer in America,
I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, bitch.
tells us that the Earth is not a perfect circle. It is actually an oblate spheroid. It's squashed and wider at the equator. Yeah.
So, Earth, throughout its life, even when it formed, it was spinning, and it got a little wider at the equator than it does at the poles. So it's not actually a sphere. It's oblate, and officially it's an oblate spheroid. That's what we call it. But not only that, it's slightly wider below the equator than above the equator.
A little chubbier.
A little chubbier.
Yeah.
Chubby's a good word. It's like pear-shaped.
Please help us. Can you please help us?
So Neil, can you please help us? Can you save the world from these parasite mind thinkers?
Yeah, again, there's some missing education. It's a failure of the educational system.
What is gravity?
We have no idea. Okay, next question.
Wow.
No, here's the difference. We can describe gravity. We can say what it does to other things. We can measure it, predict with it. But when you start asking, like, what it is, I don't know.
So did I accidentally ask a deeper question than I meant to?
Yeah, no, you were meant to ask deep questions in life. So to say, what is it? I think Einstein, in an Einsteinian answer, we would say gravity is the curvature of space and time. And objects will follow the curvature of space-time, and we interpret that as a force of gravity. That's probably the best answer I can give to a what is gravity question, or why is there gravity. That's the best I can do there. I think that's a good start. And I can also say that Einstein noted that matter tells space how to curve. Space tells matter how to move.
What the hell did you just say?
If gravity is credited with being a force strong enough to hold the world's oceans, buildings, people, and atmosphere stuck to the surface of a rapidly spinning ball, then it is impossible for gravity to also simultaneously be weak enough to allow little birds, bugs, and planes to take off and travel freely, unabated in any direction.
Fine. None of it makes sense. The problem is that we're taught as children, this ball earth lie. And, you might ask as a child, what about the people in Australia? They're standing on the bottom of the globe, won't they fall off? And your teacher says, no, gravity. And you go, oh, okay. And you never go back to that question. But when you go back to it as an adult and start looking at it with a critical eye, right, the whole thing falls apart.
You can imagine the globe squashed down, with Antarctica being the perimeter around the side. The other planets and moons in our solar system don't exist. There's not a solar system. You can't go and land on the moon. You can't go and land on these planets. They're not there. This outer space sci-fi thing is exactly that. It's science fiction. The Earth is at the center, and the moon and the sun revolve around the Earth. That's all NASA garbage, so they can siphon more money and keep throwing garbage CGI pictures at us. The way we see it is it's an enclosed system. There's water above, there's the firmament or the dome. There's no leaving it, so you can't fall off the edge, essentially. The only reason why you would need gravity as a theory is to convince people that you can stick to the bottom of a spinning ball upside down. There's no need for a magical force. Gravity is unnecessary. And
they said we live on a spinning ball, perfect sphere. They've been fucking with our minds, man. Playing with it, man. For a very long time.
If the government or NASA had said to you that the Earth is stationary, imagine that, And then imagine we are trying to convince people that no, it's not stationary. It's moving forward at 32 times rifle bullet speed and spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. We would be laughed at. We would have so many people telling us, you're crazy, the Earth's not moving. We would be ridiculed for having no scientific backing for this convoluted moving Earth theory. And not only that, but then people would say, oh, then how do you explain a fixed calm atmosphere and the sun's observable movement? How do you explain that? Imagine saying to people, no, the atmosphere is moving also, but is somehow magically velcroed to the moving Earth. The reason is not simply because the Earth is stationary. So what we are actually doing is what makes sense. We are saying that the moving Earth theory is nonsense. The stationary Earth theory makes sense, and we are being ridiculed. You've got to picture it being the other way around to realize just how ridiculous the situation is.
I mean, there's no questions around it, folks. I mean, you know, we live on a ball, man, and we should never prove we live on a ball. You know, and if we lived on a ball, we would know it. We would know it, man. We would know it.
It is claimed that the other planets are spheres, and so therefore Earth must also be a sphere. Firstly, Earth is a plane, not a planet, so the shape of these planets in the sky have no bearing on the shape of the Earth beneath our feet. Secondly, these planets have been known for thousands of years around the world as wandering stars, since they differ from the other fixed stars in their relative motions only. When looked at with an unprejudiced naked eye or through a telescope, the fixed and wandering stars appear as luminous disks of light, not spherical terra firma. The pictures and videos shown by NASA of spherical terra firma planets are all clearly fake computer-generated images and not photographs.
Okay, I just wanted to draw, council members, thank you for listening. I wanted to draw the public's attention to what may be an extremely egregious example of malfeasance, and just to help illustrate the gravity of the situation, imagine if the federal government gave $19.5 billion to Hollywood. I think we'd all be pretty upset by this. Well, there is a growing body of evidence that the International Space Station is not in outer space, but it's being filmed in a desalinated pool down here on Earth, and it's being falsely misrepresented. And this started with this phenomenon known as bubbles in space. If you search for it, you'll see many of these so-called spacewalks, which have been falsely misrepresented as live, as has been exposed many times on Facebook when they do their live ISS feeds. Bubbles out in space. Well, there's not supposed to be water up there. And it is known that the astronauts do train in these big underwater tanks. And so this body of evidence, and it's not just bubbles in space, there are harnesses or green screens, evidence of flights that are actually on parabolic flights, not in space. And if this is true, it's a big deal, because that's a lot of money that could be used for our own infrastructure or schools, whatever. So I'm drawing the attention to it because I think it's something that deserves to be looked at. Because if it's true, these bubbles in space might represent the smoking gun in probably the biggest hoax since global warming. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
It's funny that we said that this is what we're in right now. This is what we're on before any instrument approved. Until, boss, can you do it? It's funny, back in the 60s when they went to the moon, this is the first time we actually had like an instrument of flight to actually go high enough to actually fucking check out if what we agreed to 500 years ago was real. So if they were wrong after 500 years, the question is, what'd they tell you? University institutions, physics, the Royal Society in London. That's of course NASA, Newtonian physics. Why objects move on a ball spinning 1,000 miles an hour while it's going 26,000 miles around the sun. It's basically the model we accepted right now. I don't feel it's spinning 1,000 miles an hour right now. That's because of gravity. Hey, gravity, what's that? That's the thing you can't feel. Oh yeah, can you prove that in an equation? Yeah, I can prove that in an equation. It took Newton like a book, 3 times thicker than the Bible, and he still couldn't finish his equation on how to prove gravity. He would try to prove gravity when you read Newton's book of Principia through like Stephen Hawking. Well, if you even find the original book, he would prove by saying that everything started with the word if. If you fucking take Newton's book of, like, if the Earth is a ball and objects are being thrown this way, blah, 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 you know, that means that we're spinning at this amount of velocity and you can't feel it, and why the objects don't go flying off into the universe is because of gravity, because of a vacuum system of air pressure. I mean, you went to hyperbole, into ifs. I mean, if you were to highlight every time the word if came up in Newton's book of physics, you could fucking use it as a flashlight in a dark room, man. It's like you fucking get out of the cave with the amount of times if is highlighted in this fucking book on physics. It's like if is here's like a perfect example of them landing on the moon. I mean, it's proof right there. This is an official NASA photo of the first Apollo 11 lunar module landing on the moon. I mean, it's right there. This is proof, man. It's the picture's right there. It's landing on the moon. But the only problem I have with this picture is that it's taken from the moon. I don't know what the big deal was with being the first guy on the moon. It seems the camera crew was already there. A fucking tripod. Camera A, B, C.
This world is very different from what most people think it is. There are very powerful people who essentially rule this world right now. And the ordinary person is a slave in this world. And slaves aren't educated. You know, they're taught what they need to, or you know, they need to know. That's it. They're not taught truth. They're taught what they need to know. And so you're taught enough so that you can, you know, do the paperwork and operate the machinery, but you're not meant to know what's really going on, because that's the power they have over us. They know what's going on, how this world works. We don't, so they can control us.